and welcome back. In this session, we're going to talk about validation rules. But before we do that, I just want to reiterate to you that data hygiene is key to keeping a healthy and effective Salesforce org. So what are validation rules? Validation rules could be set up to prevent users from putting poor quality data in your org. They check to make sure that the data that users are inputting is up to the standards that you set. And if it isn't, then the validation rule is triggered and the user is unable to save the record. They also get a nice little error message too. It's important to note that validation rules are the first thing to fire when a user tries to save a record before any other processes such as assignment or auto-response rules. There are two types of validation rules. We have system validation, which looks at the data type, the length of data, or a blank value if it's a required field. And we have custom validation, which are created by system administrators. There's a couple of instances where validation rules do not fire. That's when quick create is used or during lead conversion, unless validation for lead conversion is enabled. It's also worth noting that validation rules will fire for web to lead and web to cases, and hidden fields can trigger validation rules. So let's head into Salesforce and create one together. So here we are in Salesforce, and we're going to create a validation rule for the lead object. And we're going to say that when a lead is created or edited, it must have a phone number or a mobile number. So let's head into setup. From here, we need to go and find the object. So we need to go to Object Manager and we need to go and open the lead object. Then we need to head down to Validation Rules and we need to click New. And what you see here is the screen for us to set up the validation rule. So the first thing we need to do is give this validation rule a name. So let's give it a name. We're going to call it phone field, phone or mobile required. And then for the description, we should put in a description so people know what this is. Perfect. And now we have our error condition formula here. So this is the argument that we need to write that's going to trigger this validation rule, and it needs to be true. So what happens is Salesforce looks at this error condition, and if it equates to true, then the error message is going to be displayed. So what we need to do is look at two separate fields. So to do that, we're going to use the AND function, and we just insert selected logic. So we're just inserting the AND. And now I'm just going to change this a little bit just to make it easy for me to understand what's going on. People work in different ways, but I always find this is the best way for me to visualize it. So this validation rule is going to trigger if logical 1 and logical 2 equal true. And logical 1 and logical 2 are just arguments that are inside here. So what we'll do is we'll double click logical 1, and we know that we're going to be firing if a field is blank. And luckily we have a function for that, which is called isBlank. So we'll just insert that, and then the expression is just the field. So we're just going to insert the phone field. We'll insert that, and then we're going to do the same again, but this time we're going to do it for the mobile field. So we'll double click that again. We'll use the isBlank, so we'll insert that. We'll double click the expression and then insert field, and we're going to look for the mobile. And we'll just insert that. And then we're just going to get rid of these here as well. So what this is doing, what this formula is looking at, it's looking to see, is the phone field blank and is the mobile phone blank? If they are, then this is going to trigger. Now to double check this, we can hit check syntax and we can see that no errors are found. So we know that this should work. The next thing we need to do is set the error message. So this is the message that the user is going to see. And again, we're just going to keep this pretty simple so people can easily see what it is. So let's put a nice easy error message in here. Perfect. And now we could choose the error location. So do we want this to show at the top of the page or next to the field? We're going to leave it for the top of the page. But if we did select field, we could choose whichever field we wanted to show at. But we're going to set top of the page and we'll just hit save. So let's test this out. We're going to go to the front end of Salesforce. We're going to go to leads and we're just going to create a new lead. So for the name, it doesn't really matter what we're putting in here, but let's just put some details in just so we can see it. And then what we're going to do is try and save this record without a phone or mobile field. So if we hit save, you'll see we now get our error message saying a record must either have a phone number or a mobile phone number. And let's just put a number in here just to check and make sure that it works. So if we hit save now, we can now save that record. But again, if we go to the details page and we try and get rid of that telephone number and hit save, it's going to fire again. So let's try it again by putting the value in the mobile field. And if we hit save, we're then able to save the record. So before we finish, let's have a quick recap of validation rules. Validation rules are used to ensure data standards, and they fire when a record is saved or edited. An error message provides guidance to users, and they are the first process to execute. There are two types of validation rules. We have system validation, which looks at the data type, the length of the data, or a blank value if it's a required field. And then we have custom validation rules, which are the ones that we create. Validation rules do not fire when quick create is used, and they do not fire during lead conversion unless validation for lead conversion is enabled. Validation rules do fire for web to lead and web to cases, and they can also fire if hidden fields trigger them.